How you got introduced to natural hygiene and maybe what your lifestyle looked like before the fact.
Okay, so I'm
How you got introduced, excuse me.
you're good. You're good.
Go ahead, go ahead.
Yeah, so I am a mom. I'm married. I'm a mom to 8 kids, and I have one grandson. We homeschool. I live in North Carolina. Um, and basically, it's a long story. So the whole health thing, believe it or not, I was fascinated with health since I was a small child. And I remember being like back in the 70s, they had a show called The Body Human. And I was like fascinated with that. So my childhood, I was sick a lot. I was just sick and sick and sick and sick and sick. And of course, my mom took me to the doctor every single time, and it was medicine and medicine and medicine and medicine. And I remember being in high school, and in one of our health classes, we had just done this whole unit on your immune system and like how your body fights off, viruses and all that stuff. This is obviously our understanding at the time, but I remember sitting there thinking, and I raised my hand to ask this question, and I was like, no, wait a minute. If our body is doing these things, like producing mucus, producing a cough, to get the bad stuff out, doesn't that mean if we take a medicine, it's stopping our body from doing what it's supposed to be doing? And I remember the teacher was like, didn't have an answer for that. She's like, I can't answer that. And that was kind of like where it started for me, thinking like, wait a minute. This, like, if our bodies are designed to do that, why are we stopping that process? So
Exactly.
that started in high school. But then when I became a mom, unfortunately, we had just issues health wise. Um, we were sick and sick and sick and sick and sick. So, and I didn't know about enough about diet at the time. Like I knew, like at that point, I knew our bodies could be self-healing. And so I would like, if we got sick, I would try not to give medicine. Um, but I still didn't know enough about things for quite a long time, longer. Not until really it was my son who, um, our first son, our fifth child, was born, and he was definitely, I knew from the beginning, like even when he was in utero, there was something wrong. Like, I don't know, mommy sense, I'm not sure. And everyone kept assuring me everything's fine, like all the numbers look fine. I'm like, there's just something's not right. And when he was born, he had we actually and I had a home birth, but we induced with herbs and stuff because I stopped growing. My uterus stopped growing, and they're like, he's got to be born. There's something wrong. I was like, I've been telling you that. And so when he was born, his placenta was only the size of your hand, which is very, very tiny.
I see.
Um, and then the doctors kept saying, "Oh, he's gonna be fine now that he's, out in the world, and he'll grow in no time." Except that he didn't. And so that led us a very, very long process of trying to find out what is wrong with our son. Um, and didn't get answers because doctors don't know, all these things. So it
And
wasn't
just to be clear,
until,
I'm sorry, just for clarification, you said the utero was too small, or sorry, the placenta was too small. How big
oh
is this?
yeah, it fit inside the size of your hand.
Mm,
A placenta should be like
I see.
as big as a
Okay.
baby, basically. And it was like, I only measure like 6 inches across. Like it was
Mm,
like my midwives, I had two midwives, and they were like, we've never seen anything like this. This is like insane. So he obviously wasn't getting the nutrients that he needed in utero. And then um, he ended up on a feeding tube for years because he couldn't, like, he was on like physical therapy, occupational therapy, like all the therapies. Um, and ends up then later on, not until he was much older, that we realized that this was under the umbrella term of autism.
I see.
So, um, we had tried different diets. And I say diets, I don't mean like losing weight diets, as like, food protocols and stuff. And we did see some improvements here and there. Like
Mm,
he had severe speech apraxia, which I don't know if you know that what that is, but it's when so the child knows what word they want to say, they understand you, but the connection between their brain and their mouth doesn't work. And
I see.
so it just comes out gibberish. So he had that going on. And so with one of the diet protocols, we did see improvement with that, which of course that cut out all the processed stuff. So I mean, you're going to
Mm.
see improvement anyways, I think, from any health issue
So
by
just
just
to be
taking it.
clear, in the beginning, he was eating processed. Was he eating meats? What exactly was he eating?
Um,
Seasonings?
for uh, yeah, yes, and he did definitely eat processed foods. It was a struggle because between my husband and the doctors, they were like, if he wants to eat candy bars, give him candy bars because he was just so thin. He fell off the growth charts. Like this
Okay.
is why feeding tube, but even the feeding tube wasn't working because his stomach needed to expand. And again, this comes into the sensory issues, which the doctors didn't realize.
Hmm.
And every time we tried to increase his stomach size, he kept vomiting. He would throw
Oh,
up and
geez.
it was just like we'd take a step forward and take two back, not even like two steps forward and one step back. Like we just were always behind. So he was very, very underweight. Um, and so yes, I didn't give him candy bars. There's that. But when he did find some kind of food that he would eat, like maybe it was chicken nuggets. I'm not saying that's any better than candy bars, but you know what I'm saying? Like it was just like, yes, please
Something.
eat something. Um, and that was really weird because when he got to be about 12, 11 or 12, something in it, because he just wouldn't, he had so many sensory issues and he was so picky about what he would eat. And somewhere around 11, 12, that just the switch went off. I don't know. He started eating everything,
Ah.
which was great and bad because he had no concept of stopping.
Mm.
You know, because like with our kids, like I never prevented them from eating. Like if they're hungry, like you might be going through a growth spurt with, I don't know. So I would just allow them to eat type of thing. Where for him, we were so excited that he was eating, there was no reason to tell him to stop. And when he was younger, obviously we was always trying to encourage him to eat. You know, have more, you want some more? You know, like it was always, there was never this idea of, looks like you're full now, or that concept of, walking away from food.
Mm.
So yeah, so then he ended up gaining weight, a lot of weight. So he went from two, small to then his endocrinologist saying, we're going to have to talk about him possibly getting diabetes if he doesn't slow down with the weight gain. And I'm like, oh, it was so difficult to balance things. Um, so we tried the diet protocol he was on when he was younger that helped with the speech apraxia, except this time it was very interesting. The rest of us had a very, very, very negative reaction to it.
Mm.
And like some of my kids had mental health issues and they got suicidal. Like it was very bad.
Whoa.
Yeah, it was very bad.
Could you
And
be
that's when I
specific?
was like,
Was it like keto? What was the diet?
it's called the GAPS diet,
Okay. Could you go into it?
um, which is like keto. Um, sorry, I'm trying to get this little work thingy.
So I'm guessing like low carbs, trying to do more meats and
Yep.
something like that. Veggies.
Yes. Yeah, just veggies and meats, and you can have bananas and some berries. That was
Huh.
it. Um, but we were desperate, obviously, at the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
And it did help with he started having the anger outbursts around age 13 or so. And that it did start helping, but it took months
Mm.
for anything to really start in. And it was such slow progress. And because we saw such negative effects on the other kids, we just stopped it. I was like, this is insane. I don't know what's going on, but this isn't it. Um, so it's basically, I've been in a lot of different types of groups looking for like health, but so I did try eating all raw for myself right before he was born, which now he's 18. So like some 19 years ago. And it was the best I ever felt. I felt amazing. I had energy. I had energy that I don't think I even had as a kid. Like it was just amazing.
Mm.
I had little kids at the time, and things got in the way. But I kept going back to that. I kept thinking, maybe that's our answer, like, and then of course now I'm a believer, I'm a Christian. So then I started going back to what are the foods that God gave us? Like he didn't give us chicken nuggets.
Yeah.
I don't believe he gave us chickens to eat. Like I was like, he put us in a garden. So I was like, okay. So that really got me really wanting to maybe move back to that. And then I don't remember who or where I found one of the links to where we met up the train group, but I had started learning more about the train quote unquote theory, but how that all works. And it was fascinating to me.
Mm.
Like, because even though I was trying to do all things all natural, I still thought there was viruses that, were attacking you, or the bacteria was attacking you. And so we tried herbals, or I have all sorts of stuff that we try. So I'm always trying to kill off this stuff. And actually, believe it or not, I am so thankful I found this group when I did. And the reason why is I do have, I don't know if you ever heard of Rife technology,
Oh
but
yeah, yeah. Rife machine. Yeah,
so I have a Rife machine. And we were about to embark on what was called a Lyme protocol. It was actually designed to beat Lyme's disease. And
yeah.
some people who have children with autism had found results with it. And a lot of them think it's because of the biofilms. And, I don't, all the stuff. So, but then I started learning about terrain, and I was like, ooh, wait a minute. And then I was like, even if we kill off all these things and you feel better for that time, what are
Yeah.
the long-term consequences going to be? And I was like, I can't do that. I have to learn more about this. And so then I started searching, and that's when I found about the hygienic diet and lifestyle. And I was like, okay, this has been fitting in with all those years of me trying to find little pieces
Yeah.
of this puzzle. Um, so that's how we got there. That's how we got here. And so I sat down with my son and explained to him, I said, hey, you've been, I mean, he was having nothing short of 20 outbursts a day, at
Oh
least.
wow.
That would be a good day, to like 50 a day
At
of.
this point, what is he eating? You said he's eating everything. He's
Oh, he
eating.
was just eating anything at that point. He would eat the pizza, the chicken nuggets, the French fries, the
Gotcha. Okay.
stuff. Like he was eating that stuff. But even like we were actually known as the sickest healthy family to
Yeah.
friends and family. No, they were just like, we don't understand. You guys are always trying to eat healthy, but you're the sickest people we know. And I'm like, oh, I don't know. But obviously it was like, I mean, I'd gone through like what's it called? Where you germinate your grain and then dehydrate it and grind it. I mean, did
All sorts of things, huh?
we did all sorts of things. So when I sat down with my son, I was like, I know we've tried all the things. I said, but I need you to do this last one. I was like, I think this is it. And I explained what that meant, raw fruit, raw fruits and veggies. And he's like, well, how about this? I'm like, I said, that's not a raw fruit or a veggie. I said, just raw fruit. Well, how about meat? I'm like, raw fruit. He was like really, really trying to stretch it. And he was like, I'm not doing it. I'm not. And I was
Mm.
like, I said, well, I'm not really going to give you the option to. Like, I knew I couldn't force him. Like, he's 18.
Yeah, yeah.
Except it's a little under. They consider him high functioning. I would say he's medium, and that's not like a diss on my son. I'm just saying, like, he couldn't live on his own right now. Like, he's not
Mm-mm.
that high functioning. Like, there are people with high function autism in college and whatever, and he's not to that level.
Mm.
Um, so I was like, but your behaviors, I said, if you were living on your own, you can eat whatever you want. I said, but if you're living here, your
Exactly.
behaviors are really affecting everybody, like all day long. Um, and so he came back the next day and he was like, okay, I'm ready. When do we start? And I was like, oh, 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 you gotta give me time here, like I started him first because I was like, transitioning everybody to me at that time seemed overwhelming because there's 10 of us that live in this house. So I was like,
Mm.
just
And
use
just to be
me.
clear, what were you transitioning from?
From basically the sad diet at that point.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I kind of, I had done all these things, right? I mean, like I said, I'd grind my own grain. I'd make our own bread. Everything was from scratch. Like I spent hours and hours and hours and hours in the kitchen with no results.
Mm.
And then we would try this other thing, which was like with the gas diet. You're like, in the beginning, you feel, oh my gosh, because your brain can't work without glucose, which is what I realized what was happening. And they call it detoxing, but it's like, no, your brain's like on the glitch because it doesn't have glucose. But I didn't know at the time. So we're just detoxing. We had done all of those things for so many years that I kind of gave up after a while. I'm like, apparently, like I knew it was diet. Don't get me wrong, like I knew, but I was so worn out. I'm like, I
Yeah.
can't do this.
Just so
Uh,
many options of the wrong options, right? It's just
yeah, and at that
exhausting.
point, I was like, I don't care, and not it's not that I didn't care. I did care, but I'm like, I'm at the end of my rope and I don't know what to do anymore. So anyway, so he was all for it and I was like, okay. And so there was we were still on the transition part of things for him. Like I was like, at first I was like, you can eat the only cooked things will be like rice or potatoes, like if he felt
Mm,
extra hungry.
mm,
Um, and I allowed him like some corn chips that didn't have like natural stuff, natural flavorings or anything like that.
got it.
Um, but just that, just even with having those in it, he was telling me, and this is amazing because about a week into it, like, and I told all my family, I said, listen, I think it's going to get worse before it gets better. So just
Mm,
hang on. And it's true. For about 2 weeks, he did get worse. Um, and I was like, we're just going to have to hang. And I thought it was going to be longer. So I was actually quite surprised. It was only 2 weeks. But after that 2 weeks, I remember going to the day, and by the end of the day, because it was so normal for him to just be screaming and screaming and screaming. And then the day I was doing something, and I don't remember, I like realized because the computer is what agitates him the most. Like if his game doesn't go the right way, or even if the computer connection is slow, he would freak out. And
mm.
I was looking at him and I'm like, he hadn't had one outburst. I was like, wait a minute. And I had to think back. I was like thinking back, going, I'm thinking, no, did he scream? No, no. I started typing to all family. Oh my gosh, it's the first day he's not had a single outburst. Like this is miraculous.
Revolutionary, yeah.
It was absolutely miraculous. But then he came to me a couple days later. So I was like, I'm not gonna say anything to him yet. I don't know if he was gonna to realize it or not, but he came to me. He's like, Mom, he's like, my head feels so clear. I've never felt this way in my
Wow.
whole life. I just cried. I just cried because I know I can't, okay, I don't know, but I can only imagine just seeing how he tries to process things or the outbursts he would have, that his head must have been so scrambled
Mm,
this whole time. And so for him to be like, I can think. And he's like, and so he started getting back into some of the things he enjoyed. Like he bought like a home telescope to look, do astronomy stuff. He got, he used to like that when he was younger, but
mm.
he's and I didn't realize this. Like I just thought he kind of outgrew it, or I don't know, decided to try something else. He's like, oh, I've always loved it. He's like, but I couldn't focus on it anymore. So for years he had stopped doing those things, not because he outgrew them, but because his brain was too scrambled.
Wow.
So now he wants to go get a microscope so he can like look at things that are small. And it's been really fascinating to see
It's like
him.
with diet, he's regaining his life.
Yes, yes, definitely. Like I definitely now can see where, because he does have ABA therapy, which is thankfully, you can hear some really bad things about it. This is not like that. They're actually here to try to help him so he can get a job, and learn the skills that he needs to do that. And even his therapist, because I did let them know, and they're totally on board with me. That was just great. Because I don't know if, at least for me, whenever we try to try something new, and if we're in a doctor's or in some type of medical personal relation with somebody, they'd be like, diet has nothing to do with it. Or that's not going to do anything. Or, like it just, but they were totally on board. They're like, no, definitely, like, let us know how it's going to go, like whatever. And so even his therapist was like, like she was so impressed because he was so hard to work
Yeah.
with, because they would make him do stuff he didn't want to do, and they were just fighting with him, like, not fighting, you know what I mean, but just like trying to encourage him, we got to
Yeah.
get this done, and then you can do this, and he would just be like, and so I remember her coming up to me and going, oh my gosh, what just happened? Like yeah, she
It's
was
funny because it's like everyone was trying to fix the things around him, but no one thought to fix what was inside of him, right?
yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, and I mean, I remember like with all of his, so when he was younger, like I said, he had this vomiting problem, and um, they thought he had silent reflux. They thought they had this. He thought it was all these things. And I remember because he had an NG tube first, and you weren't supposed to have NG tube for like a few weeks, I guess.
Mm.
But he had one for 6 months because like he fell through the cracks, and the doctors just kind of lost track of him. I don't know, because thankfully my sister's a nurse and she is holistic minded. So she was like, he shouldn't be on this feeding tube anymore. And so anyways, he got the G tube, which goes right directly into his stomach. But
Mm,
this is when he was vomiting and vomiting. And I was like, why is this happening? And I remember going to the GI doctor and I was like, listen, you thought he had this reflux. And so you put him on medication, which lasted for 24 hours. The side of like all the bad side effects you could have, he had within
mm.
24 hours. So he was off of it. And after that day was when the vomiting went from a couple times a day to like 8 times a day.
Oh my gosh.
To stop is to stay there. I said, what happened? Like, obviously it was the medication. How do we fix this? How do we get, and he's like, I don't know. I'm like, okay, that's fine. Doctors don't know everything. That's fine. Where do we look for answers? I don't know. I know this is unacceptable. Like, he can't live this way. Like, he's already underweight. Like, how do you get a kid to gain weight if they're vomiting like every single time they eat?
Yeah.
And so his answer was just, I don't know. And I was like, okay, we're not going to get answers here.
Mm.
And then when they would bring the nutritionist, and even the nutritionist would say, at this point, give him Pediasure, give him candy bars, give him whatever he wants. And I'm like,
Oh geez.
I want him to be healthy. Like, I know he needs to gain weight. Like, I get that. I get that. But I don't think that's healthy. And they didn't care. They were just like, he needs to gain weight. I'm like, okay, there's got to be a better way to do that. Anyway, it is a long, long road.
Yeah.
So going
Wow.
back to just the natural, the simplest of things, which people actually I think make it the hardest of things. I mean, I believe with all my heart that like diet is almost on a spiritual level
Yes.
to the point that like people will fight to it worse than their beliefs. I had we had this interaction. This was when I was starting to learn that diet was the issue here. I didn't know exactly yet, but I'm like, I know this was the issue. And we had hosted this homeschool class in our house. And so we'd had this mom show up, didn't know who she was because it was the first day of the class. And I had little tiny ones, so I put them to nap and I come out and there's this lady in my living room I don't know, and she's crying. And I was like, oh, like if you're crying at somebody's like a total stranger's house, you've something severe has got to be going on. So I was like, hey, is everything okay? Can I help you? And she's just crying how like she has 4 kids, all of them have asthma. One of them was just in the hospital for 3 days, and the other one looks like they're gonna have to go in the hospital all for the asthma. And how scared because we're going into the winter now, and she was terrified. And all I said was, have you ever looked into diet
Mm.
and the relationship to diet and asthma? I didn't even mention any specific diet, just have you ever looked into it? And she looked
Yes.
at me, she started, no joke, yelling at me.
Uh,
My husband's a scientist. We only do things
oh
according to the
dear.
FDA. And she's like, food has nothing to do with it. And I was like,
Well,
okay.
there's your problem.
Yeah, I was like, well, and I was thinking, I didn't say it because obviously she was quite upset. I was thinking if he was a true scientist, he should take 2 of his kids, put them on a different diet, and to keep the other 2 on their one they were on.
Yeah.
Anyways, so it's been hard to find people that are going to give you the truth, or they even know the truth. They don't even know. Um,
Or
so
like
I'm,
you're saying, or even open to it in the slightest.
oh yeah, not even the slightest. So, I mean, even my sister, like I love her. She's my rock. She's everything to me. And Ashley, all the things that she's become holistic over is because she was medically minded, and she would go if I talked about things like vaccinations or diet or whatever the case may be. She would go and research it to prove me wrong. Like that, she would go there to try to prove me wrong, and then she'd go, oh, okay, you're right. And then she would actually start changing their lives, right? And so it was really kind of funny. So she's like one of my best advocates, but when it comes to the raw foods, she's still not there. She said, no, you still need protein. You still need protein.
Oh
And I'm
dear.
like, okay, but the plants, like, so I try to explain it to her. She's like, no, 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 no. That's, and she's still like, gotta have your protein. I'm like, okay, we're not there yet. It's okay.
Yeah, I
And
mean,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, no, go ahead, go ahead.
I was gonna say, so because I have this rife machine, I also have this, I don't even know what it's called. It's new to me. It's some bioresonance analyzer thingy. And and analyzes the different things in your body, whether it, just different levels of your health and your liver and your heart and your cholesterol and whatever, without blood or anything. It's just electrical stuff,
Huh.
frequency stuff. And so my husband saw that obviously the change with my son, and he was like, okay, maybe we should do this for a time. Like he's like, it's a detox. This is his idea, right? Like we'll just do it for a time. And so one of the things that analyzes is your amino acid levels.
Mm.
Okay. So he was all like, oh, I'm a meat eater. My panel, his was the worst. His was the worst, the lowest. And he's like, that can't be possible. I eat meat, I eat protein. And I'm like, you don't get it from meat. Like, I'm like, I keep trying to tell you that. So he had to see it with he saw it with his own eyes. Like he doesn't have the levels he's supposed to, even though he's eating meat, he's eating the protein. And I'm like, there you go. I would say it's black and white, but they use different colors for different things. So, but yeah, it was definitely something that he had to come to terms with, but he still, um, I don't think he'll stick with it long because he loves meat. He
I see.
still can't get over the idea that that's how you get your protein. Okay. But
Yeah, I mean, like you said, it's kind of like a belief system that's so ingrained, and it's again like everyone says in the natural hygiene community, whether it's Shelton or TC Fry, it's stimulation, right? It's a agitation.
yes, yes. When I read that, oh, I was so, because he's like, oh, I just feel horrible when I don't eat meat. I feel better when I do. And so finally, when I read that, I was like, this is why.
This is it.
This is why. And so I've been diving into reading the files and stuff to learn more about,
Mm,
like I said, I was on board already in the sense that I knew that our bodies could naturally heal themselves. And of course, I just thought, oh, maybe our world is just so fallen, it's just so toxic that you have to have the help of medicine. You have to have, this. So, but now I realize that's not the case.
yeah, I mean, isn't it so
Medicine,
amazing? Because like you're talking about all these machines and
yeah.
these medications, but the body is just
It's yeah, and it's funny because like even when this had to be 20 something years ago, we got in the flu, whatever the case, be, and I got it first. And I remember I was just like, I'm just gonna drink water, I'm just gonna lay in bed. And I would just visualize getting healthy. That's all I did. Was just like,
Mm,
I imagined that my body knew what it was gonna do and it was gonna do it and let the fever run. Like I was just remember being in bed and just thinking about that and falling asleep and getting up and drinking water and just doing that. And my husband got sick soon after me and he's like, oh, I'm gonna go get the Tamiflu. I was like, don't do it. Don't.
ah,
That's like the worst you can do. But I gotta get back to work. I gotta get back to work. He was sick for at least 5 days longer than I was with the Tamiflu. And I
mm.
was like, don't you think maybe? And then we got like sick a few more years later like that. And he still did it again. And I still got over it before he did. I'm like, are you not catching on at this point?
Yeah.
Your body can get over this faster. The medicine just impedes it. So yeah, but and of course I get so excited about it and I'm going around and telling my kids and they're really funny. They they humor me and listen to me. So, but it's been great though because they've been catching on. Like they do listen to what I'm saying. And um my my 14-year-old came to me because I started them
Mm.
on all fruit breakfast.
Okay, nice.
And then so this has only been almost 3 weeks for the rest of us because my other son's been on it for a little bit longer because I started him first.
Mm.
But and then we're going to transition to then lunch and then transition to dinner. But even just with the breakfast, he came
Mm.
up to me and he's like, Mom, he's like, I have so much more energy. And it is just great to see your kids seeing it for themselves. It's not me now telling them like this is the healthy way, which it is. I'm not saying that, but like just for them to see it themselves. And my 14 and 16-year-old just started playing rugby. And
Mm.
I know they were really concerned about their energy levels for playing. And I told them, you could be, and I said, we're going to go slow so you don't hopefully have any type of big detox. Like you're going to eventually have detoxes. I know that, like, because we've had medicines, we've had stuff. But I said, we ease into it. And believe it or not, my one child who I thought would be the most compliant with it was at first like, I don't want to do this. No, I'm not doing it. And I was like, what?
Mm.
And he was just like, no. And I said, listen. And so I explained it all, explaining my thoughts on it. And she's like, okay, fine, fine, fine. Um, but they've been doing even before their rugby games because that's what they were afraid of. And they're like, well, we won't be able to play as well. I said, I'll tell you what. And I said, first of all, you just start playing. And the team is not like really large enough. Like rugby, where we live, is not a big thing. So it's
Mm.
very hard for them to find teams to play against. And I don't know how long their team has been together, like before they joined, but they're not like ranked really high. And that's not to put them down or anything. I'm just saying that that's, they're just not ranked high. And so I said, listen, right now you just started, so you're not even like star players or anything. So even if you do have a detox, you're going to have this, maybe shortage of energy at first before we can find out what works for you. It's
Mm.
going to be okay because you're not going to bring your team down.
Yeah.
So that kind of helped them. So thankfully we were like that, but they've been doing great on it. They will play rugby and they have no problems with their energy level while they're playing. And they're just eat fruit before they go into the game. So I've been really happy with that. I'm really happy that they can see that they can live, like fruit is going to sustain them, even in, these games and stuff. So
Yeah,
it's
I
been,
mean, even after the detox, they'll probably get more athletic and faster and less
yes,
sluggish.
that's what I told them. And I've been trying to save some stories that I'll see online with people who transitioned to raw and how their, athletic performances have gotten better to show
Mhm.
them that like, this is the real, like you'll get better actually, so, and I know for myself, I was getting like needing to take a nap or feeling the need to take a nap every day around 3 o'clock. I just be like, no, I don't need to do that. So
Okay,
yeah.
got it.
So yeah. So we're really like, I think everyone is really looking forward to the changes
Changes.
now. Especially since because we made that transition faster for my one son with autism and seeing just his progress, they all realize like there's something to this. Like, what I'm saying? Because they've been dealing with this for years.
Yeah,
And to see that a couple weeks of a diet change has that much impact.
yes.
And it feels so sad, like when I'm so glad about his therapist because I know his therapist will spread the word, but there's so many who refuse to believe that is and who just believe that autism is just a part of normal.
Yeah,
And I'm like, it's not normal. Like that means your brain's not working for some reason. And it's
exactly.
sad when people just, and I get it, like I get they want to feel some type of like their kid is still okay. I understand that, but to normalize it as this is normal is not
Exactly.
helping. It's not helping the children because then they don't try different things, and some do. Now, I'm not saying all of them, but we've come across people who just it's just the way it is. He's on these medications, and it's like, okay, have you tried diet? Oh no, 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 no. It's-
And that's largely the way society sees it too, right? That, oh, when you're old, it's just natural to get sick,
yeah.
You're only healthy when you're young. But no, in reality, sickness itself is completely abnormal.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. That's not the norm. And we've made it the norm. It's
Yeah.
incredible. Like I remember two of my girls got in a bad car crash. One of them was in the hospital for like almost a month.
Oh,
But
geez.
yeah, she's fine. She's fine now, but not so much at the time. But at the time we had to take her on these walks to regain strength and everything. And I remember going by and seeing what like it looked like a hotel. Like it just I saw these doors and it looked like a hotel. And it was because I think they were doing some construction. I didn't know exactly what was in like it was open, but like they didn't have the signs they would normally have. And I was like, so I remember asking one of the nurses, what is that? Like what? She's like, oh, that whole building is the heart center. The heart. She's like, yeah, she's like, that's where people, where all the heart attack patients go. And then that
I know.
what you saw there is for their families because it's like
Just
it is like a
insane.
hotel for them. And I'm like, you're They have a whole entire building,
Yeah.
costs probably millions of dollars for something
Yeah.
that's completely preventable. Completely preventable. And it just blew my mind. I just remember,
It's almost imaginary, it's like a perversion of, really detailing out all these separate details and focusing on them on from the outside rather than the inside.
yeah,
Like
you're right.
even in Korea, there's a hospital called Severance Hospital, and like recently, like a few years back, they built a huge, like you said, like a hotel-sized building that's a cancer center. And it's just like people like people would do everything but remove the cause.
But
Know,
yes.
they'll go to the doctor, they'll try yeah, it's just
Yeah,
insane.
and it's even with my dad, he's in the 70s now, and he was getting his pain in his knees. And like I said, my sister thankfully is holistic minded. She's trying to get out of nursing so she can do something that's not so she's like, we're just killing people. We just slow it down. Some cases we speed it up, but like she's like, we're just killing people. And she hates that. And so she wants to get out of it. But my dad will call her because, she's a nurse, and he's like, oh, I don't know what to do. My doctor says I need a knee transplant, and replacement, not transplant, knee replacement. And she said, Dad, what you need to do is lose weight. What you need to do
Mm,
is get out walking, and you
mm,
need to stop with the Diet Cokes and the Diet Pepsis, and stop with the, she would tell him, this is what you need to do. She's like, I'll tell you what's going to happen. X amount of, and the guy, I can't remember, 6 to 9 months. She's like, you'll feel okay. You'll feel better, like after some of the therapies or whatever. And she's like, and then you're going to feel worse. And then your knee's going to start hurting again. And now, mind you, I remember he called me about 9 months after his transplant. He goes, your sister was right. And I was like, Dad, she's always been right. Why do you call her? And she's going to give you the opposing opinion of the doctor. It's going to be complete opposite what your doctor tells you. Okay. But you follow the doctor, get the results she tells you you're going to get if you follow the doctor, but you keep calling her for advice on what to do. If you took her advice, you wouldn't be in this situation. And he's still stuck on the doctor said. The doctor said this. The doctor, and I'm like, okay. That's why I said it's like this belief system almost. Like I can't, like, I don't understand why people are so tied to it, like so not willing to look into things, like even when, and I don't know if it's okay to talk about vaccines or not on here. Like, I don't know if
maybe
that's
talk about them vaguely, but yeah, yeah.
okay. So when I started like looking into well visits and stuff like that for my kids, and when I wasn't even looking for that. I was looking just in because I was pregnant with my first, and I was starting to look for like how to keep your baby healthy, whatever. And I remember finding people who were talking about like maybe not doing everything that everybody else does. And I was like, and instead of what I see people doing now, that's stupid. You're making everybody in danger. I thought, huh, if they're so important and it's supposed to protect your baby, but I know that the moms love their kids, there has to be something of some reason why they would forgo that they
Mm,
think is better. And instead of blowing it off, I actually looked into it because I was like, why would they think that? And it opened up a whole new Pandora's box for me of learning about health, right? Like your body can fight off these things. You know, at the time, like it was step by step. But to me, it's been, why wouldn't you want to, know, like why wouldn't, if someone said like, hey, because they'd take a potion, they would take a pill. If your doctor was like, hey, this pill is going to stop your whatever, they're going to take it. But if you're like, hey, if you eat this way, you won't need pills. You
exactly.
won't need any of that. No, 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 you can't do that. Can't do that. Can't
So
do that. No.
I think really it's like a shrugging of responsibility, wouldn't you say?
Yes. Yes. Yep. That's why I try to teach my kids. I'm like, this is a matter of personal responsibility. Um, there was this, I don't know how long ago was it, about the one of the, no, I don't think it was a CEO, but somebody in the health insurance was
Yeah, yeah. He
killed.
got shot or whatever, or
He just got shot, and some of the people were like, yeah, yeah, we need this whole insurance. They're scamming us. They're the blah, blah, blah. And I'm
yeah,
like, the prices of insurance are going up because people keep getting more sick, and they're getting more
yes,
sick because you keep eating more junk. And the personal responsibility here would to stop eating the junk, then you wouldn't need insurance, first of all. If you thought you did,
exactly.
prices would go down and there'd be no reason to be killing people over it. But yeah, it's all about personal responsibility, you know? I
Yeah,
mean,
even with the doctor, it's much easier to just trust this, give some money, trust this guy. It's just like drugs, right? And then you get like
mhm.
hear what you want to hear, and there's a quick fix. It's much
Yes, quick
easier,
fix.
and
Yes.
then boom, you expect it to work, but again, it's too good to be true. You know, what's not
Yeah.
too good to be true is that it's you have to get back to the basics, and you have to fit the puzzle pieces right first, and then you can get
Yeah.
that
And and to me, it's like, why wouldn't you want to do that? Like, why wouldn't
yes.
you have the energy? Because you're not going to get health from a pill. You're just not. You can't get health from a pill or a shot or a lotion or I mean, I remember even it's just so funny. Some of my kids are so funny. So one of my daughters, she's my third. She's 23 right now, but back when she was a teenager and she started breaking out like with pimples, whatever. And I said, honey, it's what you're eating. Because like we were still trying to eat healthy, but if they went out or about, they would eat something with sugar because oh, mom's not around, you know. So she was breaking out. Oh, and she's like, I want to get this, acne product and this acne product. I'm
Oh
like,
my
you don't
gosh.
need acne products. I said, it's
Yeah.
this like by that point I knew like this is coming from inside of you. This is not a skin problem. This is a body problem. And
Yes.
so you need to fix what you're eating. And she thought, and she tells me this now, she's like, I thought you were just trying to be like a killjoy where you just didn't want us to have fun, didn't want us to have like pizza and cake or whatever. And she's like, but now I know you're right. I know it's diet. So, but it's been great because even she's out of the house now. I talked to her about like going all raw, and she's all in for it. We're all starting this process.
Mm.
It's been it's been really great, and I've been really great that they've been open to it. Um, so I've shared all the things, like I've shared it with them all these years, what I've learned, what I find out. Um, and so it's been great that they were actually like, yeah, because they're just like, yeah, I'm done feeling the way I feel. And they're in their 20s. I said, guys,
Wow.
think about this. If you're in your 20s and you feel this way,
Yes.
when you get to my age, yikes, Um, like you're not supposed to be sick like this. You're
Exactly.
not supposed to have low energy. Like this is your prime of life. And you're just, oh, I can't do anything today, or aches and pains already, or I mean, just you name it. So that has been great.
Have you
Sorry.
talked to or put any of these kids of yours on a fast, like a water fast?
No, what I plan on doing, so I have that in mind. What I plan on doing is once we transition over fully,
Mm.
is to start like this is not my thought. Maybe once a week, a 1 day water fast, once every other week, a 1 day water fast, and then after a few of those, go to a 2 day water fast, and then work our way up to three. I've done 3 day water fast myself, and I just went into it. I just went into it being like, because I was feeling so horrible at the time, or whatever I was going through, and it was hard.
Yeah.
It was hard. So I was like, maybe we'll start them off with 1 day at a time. Um, but I figured I would wait till they had transitioned over and maybe had done a little bit of detoxing on their own already.
Mm.
Um, and then go from there just because I would want it to be more of I don't know how positive an experience it could be, but what I'm saying? Like, I don't want
Yeah,
it to
I
be
get you.
such a
Yeah, I
burden.
get
They're
you.
like, I'm
Yeah.
never doing this ever again.
Not such a bad kickback.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
not,
yeah.
yeah, just kind of ease into it. But like I said, been fascinating to me, even
Mm.
because I was going to, along with doing this Lyme protocol, which we're not doing anymore, was we were going to buy things to make an in-home sauna. But
Mm.
then as I was reading, and this has been great because like even though I've learned a lot, I was like, there's still more I keep learning. Then I was, as I was thinking, well, what about saunas? Would that be healthy? And then I like looked into it, and then people were like, no, if you're forcing your body, anything you're doing, the cold plunges, the saunas, anything that you're forcing your body that it wasn't ready to be doing, that's not trying to do itself, is a no-go. And I was like, oh, yeah, I didn't think about it. You're putting more stress on the body. I was like, I never thought about that. But yeah, so you
Yeah,
gotta
and
wait.
Yeah, it's crazy how it's like a fad and it's just so popular now, but
Yeah.
it's just really beautiful to see what you're doing and with your family with the results they're achieving because really I like no one really talks about this much, but I really think it's like a spiritual war on genetics because that's really the info the creator put in you, right? And really what he meant or he she or whatever that the creator meant was for that to be preserved and so that we could continue it on just like a tree would, the seed would fall from a tree and hopefully you would want to get a healthier tree next.
Right.
And
Right.
so
I know. Yeah. Yeah.
and
The,
yeah,
like the
just real quick,
idea.
as you see your children, that's the goal of life really, right? Is to preserve the genetics and through them
Right.
and through yourself, right? To ex have the best expression of life, of the creator. And go
Yeah.
ahead.
Yeah. No, just that idea of that, and just that's what got me, like I said, with my belief, and just realizing that the body can heal, like all these things that started coming together, and realizing like I'm sure you probably heard of the is it Pottinger's cats
No, what's
study.
this?
There was a scientist, like yes, his last name was Pottinger. But he did an experiment with these cats where with one group of cats, he fed their natural diet, all
Mm,
raw diet. And the other cats, he fed the kibble and
mm,
whatever stuff. And he said within a matter of, I think it was like just a couple of generations of the cats, they were getting all these diseases, all these sicknesses,
mutations,
even
yeah.
mental health issues, all these
This is
things.
it.
And then with the other cats that were on their all raw natural
Species
diet,
specific diet, yeah.
yep, they were healthy. They gave birth easily. Their kittens, they didn't have miscarriages. They didn't have stillbirths. They didn't like, and though what was interesting though is then he then transitioned the cats that were really sick to the all raw, and
Mm,
they were able to get back to that health over the generations. Because right now, like I realize like the way, like I said, I was sick from like supposedly I had a fever when I was born. Like my
mm,
mom was like, "You came out sick," and I was like,
mm.
"Wow, that's great." I don't know, but like soon after, like within a few hours, like I was already on meds for a few hours after birth. But my mom, she said, "Yeah, well, she's like, I didn't have an appetite." She's like, "So I would just like not eat during the day, and then I ate literally pizza and candy bars at night."
Oh, oh dear.
That's that's that she had when she was pregnant with me. So I was like, so we're kind of like in the Pottinger's cats thing. We're the sickly cats right now. And I'm hoping that by the species specific diet, we're gonna get better and better. My kids can have children that
Oh
would be
yeah.
better and better.
Oh yeah.
Um, and I've been able to tell between family and like one of my friends, I've been telling everybody that like you gotta look into this. And thankfully, some of my friends, they know I'm going to talk about the craziest things. It's in their eyes, right? They're just like, because I'd be like, guess what? Like, do you want to know something crazy now? And my new crazy, I'm like, viruses don't exist, and they just think it's funny. They think it's funny, but they'll hear me out. So I've been telling them, I said, guess what? I said, okay. Because like always go back to, we gotta have protein, we gotta have meat, I said, okay. I said, what do horses eat in the wild? Oh, they eat the grass, and okay. And then what do bunnies eat? They nibble on grass and leaves, I guess. I was like, what elephants? They're huge. What do they eat? I mean, grass and leaves. Uh-huh. I said, what do monkeys eat? Well, sometimes they eat bugs. I said, okay, yeah, they might eat some bugs on this, stick. But what do they, some fruits and and then leaves and stuff. And And what if fish, I'm going through this, and I said, do you notice that all of them only eat a couple of things? That's it. I said, why do we think as humans we can eat all things?
Yeah.
Things. And so, going into like, if I dropped you on a deserted island and there were rabbits there or whatever, are you going to be able to catch a without making a trap, right? Like
Yeah.
physically by yourself, could you catch that rabbit, skin it, and eat it? No. Okay. So because we don't have claws, right? We don't have fangs. We don't. Oh yeah, I guess you're right. And then it's got them at least thinking. So, I don't know, like I've been so like excited because I'm like, finally the puzzle pieces have clicked. It's
Exactly.
all
I
come
felt the
together
same.
and it's like
Yeah.
I'm so excited. And they all think I'm a little crazy, but that's okay. They still listen to me. So they're getting the information. So yeah. But it's been great because my kids will be, I don't remember. I know like over time, I'm hoping that it will be the norm for them. You know what I
Mm,
mean? That they will be feeling so much better, that they'll realize, because we did, my son, the one with autism, had a bit of a relapse because, so my one daughter, my oldest daughter, she said she's gonna go do everything with us. But then she went to the store and she bought like, and I grant, this might be for her like lunch and stuff, but she bought bread and other stuff. And so she left it out on the shelf. And my son with autism was like, maybe I'll have some bread. And that was before his therapy, one of his therapy sessions. And both her and I were like, what just happened? He's been doing amazing. But it was worse than before. Like
mm,
it's almost, I don't know how, and I'm not, because I don't know exactly how everything works yet, because I'm still learning the learning process. But I remember many years ago, somebody I met had bladder cancer, and she had
mm,
overcome it by eating, what's it called? The Weston A. Price. I don't know if you've heard of Weston A. Price, but they believe in like raw milk, eggs, the meats, and they believe in all the fruits and veggies and stuff like that. But you should still have like raw cheese, raw, this. And she's like, well, we went all organic. She's like, however, when my kids would be at school and they had like, a birthday party and they had like, it wouldn't even be that bad, like just something that wasn't on their diet. She's like, they would get so sick. Like,
mm.
so there's just behaviors were so bad. And she's like, so we just decided we would put a little bit in there. We wouldn't go all out. And when we put a little bit, basically what I was thinking, I'm like, so basically you realize it was poison, but now you can give them that poison on a regular so they don't have a reaction to it.
Exactly.
But she
Then
did. And so now that my son hadn't had those things in his system, he still from the
exactly.
bread. It was, he was literally 20 times worse. Like he was refusing to do anything. He was screaming at his therapist, which he's never done. And we were like, what just happened? And I was like, dude, I know you ate something. He was trying to deny it. No, I didn't. No, I didn't. I'm like, I know. Like I like it. I'm like, I don't think you understand. Like it's obvious. And then my one daughter came to me. She's like, somebody got into my bread. I'm like, I know who that was. But just to see how much, like I wish I had like, okay, I don't want to, but I wish I had taken like a video. Like I wasn't thinking about it, like taking
Yeah.
videos. Because
Mm.
like it's kind of like I wouldn't show it online, but like for people who really
Yeah, for
like
documentation
this,
purposes,
yeah,
yeah.
it's just, yeah, and just show those people that I maybe know personally who are totally against it, being like, this is their son on the SAD diet. This is him not on the SAD diet. And then when he has one piece, like one item
Yeah,
now, what happens then? Like it's so mind-blowing to think that if that bread did that to him, how messed up his whole body has been for so long. Like it's mind-blowing.
yeah, that is fascinating. And
Yeah.
just the whole process of how the body gets more used to not poisoning itself and is getting rid of the poisons now, and then suddenly
Introduce the
yeah,
poison.
inject some more poison in, and it just goes into like it freaks out, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
because it can see it, like, it's kind of like those people who, at least in the stories, I don't know if that was real true, like they would take little bits of the arsenic, whatever poison to build up so they can be
yeah,
like, yeah, but
tolerant.
like the tolerant of it. But it would be like if they stopped doing that and then you gave them that full dose, all of a sudden they would end up being dead, right? And that was the
Yeah,
same idea where my son was obviously not healthy, right? We know that. And wow, now he is. And then that one thing, not even a full day's worth of sad food, just that one of his behaviors were crazy, absolutely crazy. So yeah. And
like a
even
re
everybody in the house was like, what just happened? Like,
like a
no, really,
relapse,
they were.
right? Like it's really like a drug addict. Like we are, so many of us are drug addicts, really. And
No,
then
it is. Yeah. 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 Like when you want to say, oh, at least, my kids don't do drugs. Well, they are. They're just not the drugs you think they are. I mean, really. because it is. And I think we've just built up that tolerance, and we compare ourselves to other people instead of a true health. What would true health like? Because at least I'm not as sick as so and so, or at least I don't have diabetes like my mom does, or at least I don't have. No, that's not. No, you know, or and so people are like, well, the kids, like, as soon as they started school, they got sick with everything, and they keep bringing everything home, and it's like, and it's just, this is normal. It's just like, that's what, and people are like, but that's just always what happens when you send your kids off to school. And I'm like, no one questions that. No one's like,
Yeah,
what's going on? What's wrong that my kids are suddenly getting sick? Like, maybe it's stress of the school. Maybe it's their school lunches. Maybe I don't know. I personally don't know the answer. I'm just saying nobody actually sits there and questions
yes,
why, like why. But so that's kind of where we're at right now.
got it.
And I'm really looking forward, really, really looking forward to, as we figured we would take 2 to 3 weeks to transition from like breakfast, then doing all our lunches. So this coming week we'll be transitioning our lunches to
Okay.
all raw. Um, so it's gonna
And
be
s-
really fascinating.
and I know you kind of skipped over it, but the medication. So you were on some kind of
Mhm.
medications, or your children were on medications, and now no, nothing, or how is that going?
Yeah, nobody is really on anything right now. I mean, okay, one daughter, well, she right now is an anomaly. We actually don't know if it's mold at that she started a job, and right after she started this job, she started having breathing issues, she started losing her hair.
Oh dear.
It was, and the doctors actually had long COVID. I'm like, I don't remember her being sick though, like sick, I was like, and of course, my personal belief is COVID is more like radiation poisoning, but that's my belief. I said, well, it could be because like you're losing hair. What happens if you have radiation treatment? I mean, but I was like, I was like, I don't know. And she's kind of bruising easily, not too bad. But then when we had some really heavy rains, the roof of the library was leaking. Like they had to put buckets in, and so she was like, "Oh, what's going on?" And like, "Oh yeah, the roof's been leaking for the past couple of years." And I'm like, "Well, maybe you should fix that." So I don't know. I don't know how mold. I don't know how mold is. I know we had some mold in the house and we were all sick. I don't know how that works. I don't know. Like it was just an overabundance of something. It pushes over your body over the edge. Like I'm not sure how that works. It's obviously, so I don't know. I don't know that part of it yet. But she's the only one right now that on a medication. She has an inhaler type of thing. So, but
And what does her diet look like?
right now she's only doing smoothies right now. That's the only thing she
Okay.
feels comfortable with. She will eat some rice sometimes. She's eaten some French fries a couple times,
But
but for
no
the
whole
most part,
food?
it's all fruit right now.
Okay, okay.
But I told her, because she's lost a bunch of weight right now. And it's parts because she can't breathe, so even she won't drink enough smoothies. So I've been adding dates in. I've been adding like mangoes, something like banana, something that's higher calories.
Hmm.
But she had depression and anxiety a couple of years ago. It got really bad, and she didn't want to go on meds, but she wasn't doing anything diet wise. I said, you need to either do diets, change your diet, or you're gonna have to go on meds. I mean, this so for your safety at this point, like you got to do one or the other. So she went on meds for a while, but then started to do just drinking smoothies. I don't like, she had this like, and it's not OCD, that's not what the right word is for it, but she just got like, this is only, she had this irrational fear that she would become suddenly allergic to foods, like she's eating this whole time. And so she started eating less and less types of foods. And it got to be just fruit smoothies. But I told her, I'm like, listen, that's better than being on the sad diet by far. I said, but there are things you still need to add in. You need the
Yes.
green. You need that. And she just wouldn't do it. And
Nuts and seeds as well.
so she started having like heart palpitations, um, or heart racing, like basically
Also,
positive symptoms.
Also, Kerri, have you had the discussion with her just before we go over it about how like smoothies and blended things are not as good as whole foods? because they
Mhm.
have the fibers and all this kind of stuff. You have talked to her about that?
Yes, I have, but it's a fear thing for her. She
Okay,
is only wanting to drink liquid things right now because it
I
feels
see.
safe. But she
Okay.
did start eating some rice, so I'm hoping to be like, okay, why don't you start eating just a whole banana, like kind of thing. So, but we're hoping to try to,
You should get her on a fresh squeezed OJ. I heard OJ is a lot better than the others when it's juiced.
oh,
Yeah,
when it's
because
juice.
a
Okay.
lot of the fibers I think still stay in there. So yeah,
Okay.
try some orange juice.
Yeah, maybe I'll do that. I just know that she needs help. I know like for myself, this is before I knew anything about the hygienic diet. I went on a juice fast, and I know that's not hygienic, but I've had sinus issues since I've been a teenager. And I had gotten this really bad sinus infection. And I was like, I'm try to avoid meds at all costs. So
Mm.
um it just wasn't going away. And so I thought, well, maybe I'll just do a juice fast. And it took a couple weeks. And I know it's not like it's probably because I got rid of all the junk I was eating, right? It's not just the juice. But um for her though, it was like because she's losing the weight and she just does not look healthy right now. No, she doesn't. She just does not look healthy. But after she had a couple of days off of work, and then we had a little tummy thing going on. So she stayed home for a couple more days. She started feeling better. And that's why we think maybe there's something at the library. And I don't, like I said, I don't know how that works with the hygienic model of things. I don't know
Mm.
if mold is a factor or not.
Oh,
But
definitely.
okay. So we just
Because
know that when she's home.
one of the main things is clean air. So obviously,
Mm,
yeah, if you're breathing in mold, that's pollutants, toxins, more things the body has to do.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so that's why, because when we dealt with the mold in our house, one of our daughters, it wasn't her, had severe brain fog and was starting to lose hair,
Mm.
like
Oh
was
yeah.
getting like almost bald patches. And we
Wow.
had to move her out of the house while we remediated things for like 3 months. And once she was out of the house, she started improving quickly. So I'm hoping it's only been a few days since she's been home. She told her work, like, I can't work there right now unless you guys do something about the mold. I'm assuming she's like, we'll get it tested for mold. Like she doesn't, we don't know, but I mean, if the roof's been leaking for 2 years, I'm pretty positive there's mold up there. But it's a very old building. So it's just gonna have mold. But
Yeah, open those windows.
I know, right? Yeah. Yeah, they don't do that. But so she might have to quit, which would be upsetting for her because she really enjoyed her job. But
I see.
like she really loved they had her scanning historical documents, not really mean historical, but like very like way like very old paper articles and news articles, and she found it really fascinating. And she really enjoyed it. But so now she's home, so I'm hoping she'll start feeling better in a few more days and enough to start eating more solid food.
Mm.
But yeah, so right now, like thankfully my like even my boys, they'll just eat plates of food, or just they'll eat a whole bunch of oranges, or a bunch of bananas, or a whole bag of grapes, or whatever, but they still do smoothies. And at this point I told them right now while we're transitioning, that's okay, like
Yeah, it's
because
better than
at this point
everything
it'd be
else.
better
Yeah.
than what they were eating. But I did tell them all that that's not the best, because your teeth are there for a reason. You're supposed to chew your food.
Yeah,
There's
fiber
enzymes in
was
your
made for a
mouth.
reason.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So they all know that. They know that.
Okay.
So I have found them now making like just bowls of fruit, like chopped up bananas and berries and stuff. So, um, but I will get home. I do DoorDash in the evenings as a job, and I'll get home, and my one son loves to be like, so mom, I'm thirsty, and he just wants a smoothie, but he was eating just before we went, before we've been transitioning, he was eating these peanut butter banana smoothies, peanut butter chocolate banana smoothies. Yeah. And so I was like, so the chocolate, the peanut butter, bananas are good. That's okay. But I'm like, everything else, he's like, Mom. And I'm like, why don't you try a fruit smoothie? So that's how we've been transitioning. So now he'll have like um one of his favorites right now is mango and pineapples. And
Nice. Amazing.
so yeah, so we're getting there. I'm glad that they've been willing to now.
Mhm.
And like I said, if he was stuck on those chocolate smoothies, Like that was his go-to. And I was like, dude, you have to. I said, I'll tell you what, why don't you like I'll allow you to have him a couple times a week right now. You know what I mean? Just because like, I mean, he's 16. How many, I mean, really, when you think about how many 6-year-olds have to deal with their mom changing their diet, like most don't. It's like they're just gonna go out, they're gonna eat pizza, and they're gonna have wings, they're gonna have whatever. And I'm like, you gotta stop eating chocolate peanut butter smoothies, and you have to have a Oh, but yeah. So, but yeah, so even like, 'cause in the reason, so when we actually the reason why I was going to do these things, right? Do the Lyme protocol, do the sauna was we were going to get a tax return, right? So I was like, this is the time to buy. I was going to buy a new juicer. I was
Mm.
going to buy a new juicer because I have one. But it's okay. But I was like, I'm going to get a new juicer. I'm like, no, now I'm not. Now I'm not. And then I still have my blender, so I'm going to stick with that right now. But I'm just glad that they like I said, they humor me enough to to be willing to give it a try.
Fantastic.
So yeah,
And
but
you know what? Maybe you should also consider giving them more water. Obviously you might know,
that's
yeah, the best is distilled, and then the next would probably be
now
reverse osmosis.
I have I
Mm.
do know if you know since you know probably know more than I do about that because back in the day I used to have this water distiller. I don't know. I don't my my stepdad would get a few kicks of health things, but when I was saying that, like one of them was drinking skim milk instead of whole milk. So that so I'm not okay, but one of his things was just distilled water. But then when the internet came out, I don't remember what I was reading. I just remember something about you were taking everything out of the water, like mineral. I can't remember. I don't remember what it was, but they were saying it maybe it pulled minerals from your body. I don't remember, but I remember reading that it was bad for you.
Yes. No, I,
So
I
I'm
I
wondering
believe this
what
too.
then. Okay, so what is the real deal then with
So, I mean, the best way I could summarize it to you is like look at a coconut and the water inside of a coconut. All of those minerals inside of a coconut are organic. So they're in a form such that our body can utilize them. Whereas when we look at water from a plant or even, mountain water that's very high in mineral content, these are inorganic minerals. And so when you look at these minerals, they can actually end up as kidney stones. They can
oh,
clog up
okay.
your lymphatic system. They basically end up as toxins and wastes. But no, long time ago, I was of this belief that maybe these minerals in the water in small quantities would help somehow. I don't know.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, when you read the natural hygiene literature, this is not the case, and we are heavily
Um,
misinformed. And let me give you an example that a lot of people don't actually mention. Reindeer, actually, there's a time where they won't drink from the stream, and they'll only eat snow. They'll only drink snow, which is distilled, or very close to distilled at least.
right, right.
And the reason being is they have to consume less or drink less because the water is so hydrating, it penetrates into the cells. And so
Ah,
you are correct in the fact that distilled water will take things, or quote unquote, leach away minerals, but it will only leach that which is not helpful. And
oh,
so,
okay.
I mean, another key concept in natural hygiene is that the what we're taking is not actually acting on the body and the body's acting on it. So really what we're doing is just giving the body the ideal source of water and hydration so the cells can function, so on and so forth. So that's why I'm saying to your children, because you're saying and yourself, you're saying that you guys are transitioning. Well, Lauren, like I didn't know water was so important. Lots of the natural hygienists usually don't specify water so much. They say if you're eating fruits, you're probably getting enough. But Lauren, goes ahead and says that especially if you're doing, cooked foods, you want to
Right.
get, maybe upwards of what, 1 gallon, 2 gallon, almost 3 gallons, on the high amount when you're doing cooked foods. So just to be able
Interesting.
to rehydrate all the dehydration that's happening through those
Right.
cooked foods. Yeah.
hmm hmm Yeah, I'll have to look into that then. So maybe I'll instead of the juicer, I get a distiller. So there we
Yeah.
go.
Or
Yeah,
reverse osmosis water, I think is pretty decent.
it's supposed to too.
Yeah, it's number two. I mean,
Okay.
me personally, I just love coconut water. I feel like that's just, and there's
Um,
some natural hygienists that say, or they've done studies on Polynesian cultures, and the majority of their diet was coconut for some of these people, and they were in optimum health.
right.
And another study talking about how people were only on coconut, banana, and dates, optimum health.
Okay.
So that tells you something. So
Right.
yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I'll have to look into that. Because our farm is so large, it's kind of we try to I mean at this point I'm like, boy, when we transition over, because there's at our farmers market there is a wholesale
Mm,
branch, I think, that
mhm,
they try to like sell to like restaurants and stuff. I'm like, we might have
mm.
to buy the wholesale
Yeah,
stuff at
why
this
not?
point because we buy we have to buy a
Yeah,
lot of fruit,
that'll be a lot
a lot of
smarter.
stuff. But
Yeah,
yeah,
and
but so that's what's that? I'm sorry.
no, and you have if you have to, then freeze things too. I mean, freezing is not the best because it does actually. If you
Yeah.
read the literature, it says that like foods that have less water content. So, for instance, like dates, they're practically almost no effect if you freeze them. So it's actually pretty good.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay. Right.
and the
Yeah, that
higher
makes
water
sense.
content, like a banana, after you freeze it and you dry it or it gets
Right.
warmer and you thaw it, it just completely goes black.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you can see how the water content in it is. And so that's the other thing with smoothies and all these other things, freezing is eat it quick before the oxidation gets to it so much quickly. So my friend in the Philippines, he's been raw for 7 years and he always does these smoothies, or his girl always makes him smoothies, but they always leave it out. And that's like a pet peeve of mine these days. Is
Oh,
just always telling him like, no, 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 like it's great that you're eating raw and
that is really funny. That's funny. And actually, what was fascinating for me, because like I said, we're transitioning now.
mm-mm,
So, and I wish I could say that we're at least eating healthy foods when after breakfast. Sometimes that's the case, sometimes it's not the case. But
mm-mm,
so I have had things like eggs, nuts, some nuts, not all nuts. Thinking what else? Basically milk products, eggs, and nuts will make my stomach hurt. But I usually have to have them for a while. I'll keep eating it, because I obviously stay away from those things. But like I usually have to keep eating it for a while before that kicks in.
okay.
And so I've been staying away from that. But then my daughter she had this lettuce, rice, and she put some mayonnaise, but I don't know why. She was making these wraps with just lettuce and this is the one who's drinking all smoothies. So at this point, I'm like, you're eating solid food, thank God. But she put some mayonnaise. She's like, oh, take a bite of this. And I literally had one bite, and within minutes, my stomach was hurting.
Wow, yeah.
I was like, what is going on? And then I
Yeah.
realized, I'm like, was that the thing that you told me about that you put mayonnaise in? She said, yeah. I'm like, and she's like, why? I said, because mayonnaise would make my stomach hurt if I had been eating it for like weeks. I said, literally, I took one bite of your thing, one bite. And within 20 minutes, my stomach was hurting. And I was like, that's insane.
That's
So,
it.
like I said, even though we're not eating the healthiest like foods outside of like the breakfast right now, it's just so weird that it is affecting, like
Oh
it is
yeah.
changing something for the better, obviously. But like, I was just surprised to see that because I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah, it's
For
like
sure.
all the messages your body's supposed to send you, now you're regaining the ability to listen to them and yeah,
Yeah.
finally being
Yeah.
expressed. So okay, I mean, is there anything out of the ordinary that you want to mention? Like from your journey?
The ordinary. Um, Not really. I mean, I just think it's definitely for me opening more of because when it comes to beliefs, like I said, my belief in God and whatnot, it really has though. I realize like there are people who are like, oh, but God said that this is okay now, and this is okay. I'm like, okay, I don't know why that would be there. I don't know. I'm not gonna even try to pretend I know. I'm just gonna go back to the beginning. Where did he put us? In a garden. That's what our food was. And it really has made me realize it's helped in this journey. And I've always been more open-minded, don't get me wrong, but it's really helped me to realize that there's so much more beyond what we have been told that we see with our eyes. Like, because, our brains, we only use like something like 20% of our brain, I think. What is the other 80% like capable of? And because I believe we're spiritual beings, and so there's got to be a connection between what our bodies are going through and what our spirits like are going
Oh
through
yeah.
and our abilities. Because I know when I get like when I'm at least on a spiritual level, when I'm really trying to spend time with God or really like meditate on things, like I become more aware
Mm.
of people's feelings or of spiritual matters. Like I do believe that there are forces out there. I don't know what because everyone's belief different. I just know what we've experienced. Like I know what I've experienced. I know I've seen things, heard things, felt things. My kids have all done that. They've seen things. Like we don't know if we are on. It's interesting because a lot of them have seen what it's like usually a guy who's like old military, like they're like, Mom, I think it was 1940s or something. So we don't know because when we built our house, it was just like woods. So we don't know who was here
Mm.
before us. I don't know anything about like that, but it really because of that and realizing like how powerful and I know the foods themselves are not powerful in itself, but what our bodies are capable of
Yeah,
when
yeah.
you give it the right thing, I'm really kind of interested to see how that plays spiritually as well, because I've never had those two interact. I've done like tried to do like the raw diet thing, but I wasn't even spiritually minded really at that time. And then I got spiritually minded, but I wasn't doing the diet. So it's really going to be to me, I'm looking forward to that and seeing and maybe learning more about other people's experiences
Mm.
on that. Just yeah, just because it's so I don't have anything that I've experienced because of those two. I just know I have experiences
Yeah.
with that and I want to see what that's going to happen
What it's gonna bring. Yeah.
when
No,
yeah what that will be about.
I totally agree with you because I'm actually on, I just passed 72 hours. I'm doing a water fast right now.
Oh wow,
And
awesome.
and and actually I totally agree with you. It feels like every time I do a fast that the veil is being lifted. Like you're starting to see a lot more than you would, normally be able to see. But I can't put my like hand on it or say specifically what it is, but there's definitely a difference. And just
Yeah.
to I just remembered when you were talking about doing fasts, Lauren told me, and I had no clue about this, that you want to do fasts longer than 72 hours if you can.
Okay.
So the short fasts, the only problem with them is under 72 hours. So maybe after 24 hours, you've burnt your food from yesterday.
Hmm.
And from 24 to 72, you're burning muscle.
Okay.
So for a younger person, that's fine because they can build back the muscle very quickly. But
Right.
the fasting itself can be a stressful activity, right? When you keep going into it and you're just burning the muscle and you're having to rebuild the muscle, so on and so forth. So after 72 hours, it starts burning the fat. And the
Um,
fat is where all the toxins are stored because the fat is a buffer, just like the mucus being, it's a lipid, right? So it being some sort of a oily fat kind of substance to buffer the toxins from, corroding the cells, basically. The fat in us is holding all the crap. Is holding all the toxin, the toxemia, the lymphatic stagnation, right? So yeah, so she told me that it's better to fast 7 to 10 days, maybe once a year,
okay.
than to
Okay.
do
Full
so
fat.
many, yeah, short fasts like
Mm.
that. And so that's why
Hmm.
this time I'm gonna try to do as long as possible. I don't know how long I can do it, but
Oh, that's awesome though. Yeah, see,
yeah.
I'm glad you told me that because then I've always cut it off at 72 hours and I probably just didn't get to write the good stuff. Um, but yeah,
Oh, and another
that's
thing, really quick, I'll tell you is after 72 hours, I mean, scientific studies, they've already done, like they say, like stem cells are being created. But I've
right.
heard from natural hygiene literature that cells that when you were a fetus, so the first cells that create everything, because I mean, think about it, just from a sperm and an egg,
Yeah.
the entirety of your heart's pumping on its own, your hair's going on, you're not thinking about these things, right?
Right.
And so all of this programming already existed then, and those cells come back once you start, yeah,
Oh,
once you start going to that past that threshold, because your body is finally able to basically regenerate your genetics. That's how
okay.
I put it, because it's
That would be very helpful, probably especially for my son.
oh yes.
Well, and I was okay, I will bring this out and I
Uh-huh.
because I don't want it to taint anybody's idea, but this
Okay.
might be kind of a warning. So when I was doing the raw foods the first time,
Mm.
and I only did it for a short time, and when I was about 4 weeks in is I think when I probably got pregnant with my son, but I didn't know at the
Mm,
time. And then I remember when I found out a couple weeks later, I was like, oh, I wonder if eating all raw is still healthy. And I think, and I was feeling great. Like I said, I've never felt better in my life. However, and I can't say, I mean, all my kids have like issues, mental health. Some of them have mental health. My oldest thinks maybe she might be on the spectrum. And I don't say that lightly, like, but like, um, we have dyslexia with a couple of the kids. A lot of issues. Okay, so I'm not saying that it's from that, but it was one of those things I was wondering if my body was detoxing, and because he was in utero, that it might have those toxins interfered with his growth. Okay, because there was growth issues, there was the placenta issue, that it didn't grow. And I don't know, I'm not saying that, and I don't say that to dissuade anybody, but one of the things I remember thinking over the years was if it did, but it made me feel so good, maybe that's our way to reverse it, right? What got him into it would get him out of it. And again, not because, I mean, I wholeheartedly believe that the raw foods if it's our natural diet, and had I been eating it for much longer, I don't think that would have been the case. I 1000% believe that would not have been the case. So I'm not saying it did or not, but it's just coincided with that timing. But because when I thought about that, because I didn't take any medications or pokes or anything when I was pregnant. He didn't have any of those things. Now, again, when he was a little bit older, he was on the feeding tube. We were trying everything because the kid was like just wasting away to nothing. So, obviously, medication at that point was then given to him. But even then, after that one time, we're like, no more medication. Like that one time was bad enough. That no. But that thought process to me was over the years was the answer, but it's hard to explain because then you might be like, well, then why didn't you do it? But it was just like, I was like, okay, yeah, this seems too simple. Like it's too simple. But now that you're saying that of activating those cells, that might be his hope too, because even the doctors, like some of his doctors, he's had all the doctors when he was younger, because he had a very, very, they thought he had hydrocephalus. His head was very, very large. And it's not, they're like, no, it's all brain in there. It's just, that's his brain. His brain was growing. This is great, but the rest of him wasn't. Um, but all his doctors obviously didn't have a clue type of thing. But I'm wondering, like some of them thought like, well, he did have genetic testing, and the genetic testing came out normal. But I know they only looked for specific things, and if they wanted to look for something else, they had to do a specific panel for that or whatever. But I've had a few of his doctors say, are you sure he doesn't have any other syndromes, just because of the way he kind of looks or whatever. And I was genetic testing, so it was fine. I don't know. But that's very fascinating. It'd be very fascinating to see,
oh
because
yeah.
I know my son, at least he talks about like wanting to challenge himself type of thing. So it might be kind of a good thing to be like, hey, you want to do this water fast
Yes.
challenge? you know, and see if he can't do that and see what might happen for him. I think I'm going to wait a little bit longer
Okay. Yeah.
for him, just because, like I said, he had that bread, and let's wait a little bit longer. But then try to see what a water fast would do.
Yeah.
Um,
Distilled water, at least a gallon, and please keep me updated because that would be fascinating to see
yeah.
the
Yeah,
different.
I'm trying to keep, because I'm really bad about tracking things, but I got myself this, I don't know, online something or other planner. I got on a planner, and I'm gonna have everybody write their symptoms down, like just so we
Yeah.
can know where we were,
Yeah.
and what we're doing. Like I'm gonna like, what are we water fasting, what transition station, we're in type of thing, and what we're experiencing during those things.
Yeah, and if
So
you're not a writer, maybe just do a Google Docs and make a video and just talk to your,
yeah,
yeah, and then just put the
yeah,
video on the docs and this is this date, whatever. And
right.
just to, before we gloss over the pregnancy thing, yeah, don't worry too much about the detox because the problem really is the lymphatic system is shared with the baby, right? Because the mom is cleaning the baby, feeding the baby, so on and so forth. So
Um,
obviously, the toxins that are in the mom will go into the baby.
yeah.
So it's more of the problem of what existed before and what was not cleaned out before the pregnancy,
Yes. Yeah. That's
rather
what I said.
than
I know it's not the, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
rather
what
than
I
during
didn't,
the
I was afraid to
pregnancy.
bring it up because I didn't want people to take that in the
Be
wrong way,
dissuaded.
discourage
Exactly.
them, because I
Yes.
knew it wasn't the raw foods. It's what
Yes.
my body had been exposed to. Because
Exactly.
we had been on, oh my gosh, I can't even tell you how many antibiotics I've taken in my life. I just can't. We went through a year where we kept going on antibiotics. We kept getting strep throat, strep throat, strep throat. I'm the oldest of kids. And so finally the doctor was like, this is insane. We're going to put them all, whether they're sick or not, we're putting them all in antibiotics for the week. Because they're like, you obviously keep passing it, right? And they're like, so they put us all in antibiotics. And a couple weeks later, somebody came down with strep throat. And so supposedly my mom, I say, was a carrier. Again, I know that's not how that works now, but I'm just saying, like at the time, and it was just antibiotics, it's just antibiotics always, it's antibiotics always. Like my mom was the first one to be like, you could have a cough, here's medicine. You have this. It was always medicine, medicine, medicine. So I know I had a ton of stuff in me, and we ate a sad diet. I mean, we had, oh God, do you remember the, I don't know, the hot dogs with the cheese bits in them?
Oh yeah.
We used to eat those for lunch with the Doritos and the gummy things and that. Like my mom did not, the only fresh fruit we ever had was bananas, apples, and maybe once or twice out of the summer we would have some watermelon. Everything came from
Mm.
a can, a box. It's like really sad when you think about it. So it was bad. Like just my diet growing up was really, really bad.
Mine
And
too. Don't
so
worry.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So I know it was toxins in me and not the raw foods. Like I know that. It's just I don't want to have anybody
Yeah,
be like,
because
oh my
real
gosh.
quick, because those raw foods are the best fuel and the best, what you can be taking to
Yes,
make the baby healthy. So,
exactly. Yeah, I
exactly.
just think, and then what I did was because I ended up getting these cravings, I just started the raw foods, I stopped and then started eating all the stuff that I was eating beforehand. So I think he just got insult, like salt on a wound type of thing.
Mm.
Um, and um, because my kids, like I said, all of them have issues, and I know it's partly from like how like what I grew up with, what I was eating, and that's why like oh my gosh, when I think about some people like this, I remember this lady that I knew, she got pregnant and she was in the break room and she was smoking. And I'm like, dude, you're not supposed to be smoking. Like, what? And she's like, oh, yeah, but I heard it makes the baby smaller. She's like, I don't want to be pushing out no big baby. And she's like, and she smoked her whole pregnancy. I was like, but the sad thing was, I found out later, and I'm not saying this with cigarettes or not, but she ended up and she stopped working. So I never saw her again. But her baby was deformed. The baby didn't have arms
Oh,
up, like
jeez.
up from the elbow down. And I was just like, how can you put that in while you're pregnant? You know what I mean? But so yeah, I didn't want to discourage anyone from that, but definitely know if you go from eating sad to that and you get pregnant right in those short weeks,
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
toxins
It
that are
can be
in
rough.
you,
Yeah,
it
yeah,
can
yeah.
be, yeah. And like I said, our son is from that, you know what I mean? But yeah, so but I'm very fascinated to see what I was doing along. Like, and I've tried to do some research about should you go into a water fast first? Should you wait and be fully transitioned over? I don't know. And some people go back and forth on it, I guess.
Yeah, yeah.
But
So, I mean, obviously, it would be much better if you transition from being fully robbed, just because the reserves, like the stuff that you have
yeah,
within
yeah,
you, is good, and you're not maybe like depleted in certain cases. But I mean, you don't have to worry too much because, like, people who are at like terminal cases, they go on a fast and they come back to life. So,
yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, religious figures, Jesus, Muhammad, Buddha, they're all fasting. I wonder
Well,
why.
and I don't know, and I don't know because like I pull from all sorts of things. This might be fascinating for you. I don't know if you know anything about it, and I don't know if it's considered in the hygienic. I don't know. But have you heard of Dr. Tom Cowell? Cowell?
No,
He has a book, and he has at least it's on BitChute,
probably,
whatever.
yeah. It's like a rumble
But
type thing. Yeah.
yeah, it's called "The Heart Is Not a Pump."
Mm.
And at first I was, and so I'm, me, because I tried to tell my sister this. She's like, Kerri, that's baloney. I'm like, no, you gotta understand what he's trying to say. And she's like, I don't know. And she's like, no, that's too crazy for me. I'm like, no, you. And to me, I'm like, what do you mean the heart's not pump? And he's not saying that it doesn't. It does pump. Okay, it does, and it's really pumping to your lungs. Is
Mm,
basically what he's saying. He's
I
like, but
see.
he said, and he's saying he doesn't. I mean, he's like he doesn't have proof for everything that he does say. He's like a lot of times he's just I ask myself, wait a minute, why are we doing this? Why that? So he said, now think about this. He's like, if you took all of your blood vessels, you could lay them out and it would span the entirety of a football field. Okay. Now he's like, and he's trying to say, he's like, I want you to imagine this. You got a football field. And now you're telling me you got this muscle this big and you put it in the corner of the field.
And it's
And
gonna
he's like,
pump
you're
all those
telling
vessels.
me that when you push on that, it's going to pump all the way through that whole entire football field. And I'm like, oh man, he's onto something, right? And it
Yeah.
has to do so then obviously it comes to the point then the what causes the blood to flow. And he said it has to
Mm,
do with the electrical charges of your
yes,
cells.
that sounds right.
And that the cell walls are one charge, your cells are the other. And of course, we are like batteries and we need to recharge. And we do that by the sun and by grounding, by the ground.
Mm,
And so that's how we recharge ourselves and keep those from that flowing. He's like, when you have a heart attack, he's like, your heart is like any other muscle. It's basically because you don't have enough. He's like, it's like getting a Charlie horse. Like, that's really painful. Okay. You can't move that muscle. He's like, but it's okay if that muscle is locked up in your leg. Okay. He's like, you have all these arteries going into your spleen and your liver and your kidneys and whatever. He's like, why don't we hear of a liver attack, a spleen attack, a
mm,
kidney attack?
mm.
Okay. It's not just the heart vessels. He's like, it's your heart is actually having a Charlie horse, but you can't live without that blood flowing into your lungs because he's like, that's
Yeah.
really it's pumping too because the rest of your blood then is from the electrical charge.
Mhm.
But it's been fascinating because then you really see things in a different light. Like that's why I was saying spiritually wise, I really want to see where this takes us.
Yeah.
Um, because it's so much more than what we've been taught. It's not just your heart's pumping blood and this is this like nature plays into it, how much sunlight you're getting in your eyes, the connection you're making on the earth, like all of that. And
All
it's
of it.
it's the foods that you're supposed to be eating that are going in and the air that you're breathing. Like it's just fascinating. It's just been fascinating. I've been loving it. I
Me
love
too.
reading about it. So yeah.
All right. Well, I think that was a fantastic interview. I would love for you to keep me updated and tell
Yeah,
me about your process.
definitely.
Maybe we do a part two, a part three in the future, something like that. And
Yeah,
maybe
I'll definitely keep you updated like when we see more, improvements because I know it's going to come. I know it's going to come.
and maybe I'll just ask you, maybe leave a short, it doesn't have to be short, but a message for the people as a motivation or as a, for your information type thing so they can get, either prepared or motivated or whatever the case.
Like right now or afterwards.
Well, I mean, yeah, now maybe you could just leave the last words on, let's say someone's just getting into this and they're listening to you and they're also wanting to transition. What would you say to them?
I would say one to definitely you need to everything that you've learned growing up, you need to basically set that aside. Like imagine you were dropped off on a deserted island and you woke up one day without any memory and start from there because the influences that we have from the media, from your friends and your family, from just everything is going to be telling you the untruth, because obviously people don't lie intentionally, at least not your family and friends and stuff like that. But like all of that just it's the science. Leave all that behind and be like, if you had to start over, where would you start at that point and go from there? And as a society, we have put so much emphasis on spectacular or like, oh, I mean, look, I'm thinking of a computer, like, the computers, and we all want everything more sci-fi related, right? The more spectacular, more, um,
More
Just the,
stimulating.
yeah, more stimulating, just all the things that can do things for you. And that's not where the answers are. The answers are going to be the very basics, the very easy, I'm sorry, hold on one second. Hey, buddy, I gotta call you right back, okay? I am on a phone call. I'll call you right back in a little bit. I'll be right there. I was like, he's gonna keep calling me. So sorry, but I would say that just you're gonna have to put all that knowledge that you've gained
Yeah,
aside. And
that
not saying
baggage.
throw everything out, but like really gonna have to put that aside. And as you read about the like, natural hygiene, to realize like because we've been told like everything has to be complicated and right grand or expensive or like it's that's always better. That's been kind of the trap I think that as a society we have been led to. And so I would say to start small, to start with the very basics and to trust in that process because you're going to have everybody against you. I mean, you really are. Because like I'm glad that I have my family, and that's rare because I know there's a lot of people out there who don't. And so for me, because we have an in search and they know that, and my kids trust me and realize that I want the best for them and their best good, they're okay with that. But I know not everybody's going to have that. And so if you can't get anybody else on board to trust the process for yourself, and that you're going to see, like I said, I mean, we've just done it for a short time and we're ready. My kids are already seeing their own successes and they're seeing their brother's huge success. So it's going to come. And obviously everybody has a different path because they have different toxins they've been exposed to or different life circumstances. So you might not have it as quickly as we've had it, but to not give up and not to give in those pressures of it can't be that simple, you know. That's what I would say, because I know that weight, because I like one of my friend that I was talking to, her whole family's against it. They're like, no, we're not doing that. But they're like, my kids might say, like I said, my son was like, I'm not doing it. But the very next day he was like, yes, let's do this. Because again, they realize like I've been researching, like that I've taken the time and I want the best for them. And for her kids, it's not that she's not taking the time. It's just that they haven't been doing those things, and they've definitely fallen into like, oh, but my friend said this, my doctor said that, you know what I mean? And you're gonna have so many outside influences that are gonna tell you that diet's not the answer, that simple is not the best. But definitely, like if you found this pathway to stick with that, like this, I believe it's okay. I remember, and this is going to sound really weird and really
Mm.
wacko. Maybe this is whatever, and whether it's true or not, or how it happened. Like my mom was really sickly. They thought she had cancer. She was on the operating table. She supposedly died on the operating table, and she had, afterlife experience type of thing, kind of thing. But she remembered one of the things she said was between not only the absolute love she felt, but she said the answer to all of our problems. She's like, I don't know what it was. I can't remember it because she was a kid. She's like, all I know was it's so simple. And that's what
Mm.
stuck with me from like, I think I heard that story since I was like 8, kind of thing. And she said, the answers to life are
So
so
simple.
simple. And
Mhm.
I remember as a kid, obviously not really understanding it as a teenager, oh, okay, that's really interesting. But now that I'm here and learning this stuff, it's really, I think this is what it's going back to, right? This is what
Yes.
God gave us. It's the simple things.
Yeah.
Stay simple.
What a
So
great gift.
yeah. So
Thank you so much for that. I think that was probably one of the best messages you could give to a newcomer. So
yeah, awesome. Awesome. Well, I
fantastic.
really enjoyed talking with you. It's been great. I know I did a lot of talking, but
No, that's the purpose.
I know I know it is, but like, yeah, but I'm so glad I learned about the distilled water, and I have to keep, looking into it and
Yeah.
finding finding something, a distiller or something, because buying jugs of water is
Yeah, it's pretty tough.
it's not gonna happen. So, but
All
yeah,
righty,
but
Kerri.
all right. But I appreciate you taking time to sit with me and hear my story. So I hope it encourages somebody, because I know there's so many sick people out there. I know there's so many sick kids out there, and there's so many parents who want better and they are not being told the truth. So yeah, I hope it
Absolutely
reaches somebody.
revolutionary what you're doing. I hope you realize this is much bigger than just you. You're doing this for humanity.
Yeah, I didn't think about that, but yeah, if each of us does our part, right? If each of us
Yes.
say, was that be the change, be the change. So,
All righty. Well,
all
I'll
right.
see you next time then, yeah?
All right.